How's it going, Dawn?
It's good. How are you, Amy?
All right. I'm all right. I kind of like this platform.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
Fairly easy to navigate.
Yep.
I think it's all right. We did a lot of testing and training and everything on it as, organizers. And I was really I wanted to be entirely sure how to do everything for the president's panel tomorrow. I was like, all right, I need to know everything.
Yeah, for sure. I do unfortunately have a funeral I need to go to tomorrow, so I'll only be attending until about 10 a.m. But yeah, I'll be there in spirit.
Hi, Dawn.
Hi, Kristen. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Good. Hey, before we get started, I wanted to ask you, I know that you are heavily engaged with your Michigan Works office. There's a fly in my office.
Where's your swatter?
I know. So we signed on for a MyLeap grant with them locally. And part of that is that they hire a navigator to be placed here on our campus.
Oh, nice.
And I wondered if we might have a chance to talk, whether it's now or later, about best practices. What do I need to look out for, with that coordinated effort, those kind of things. Because we have had, I come from that system. I always say I did 17 years there. So it's not like I don't know their system, but this is a different nuance to our cooperation, which is pretty much non-existent. So
will you be hiring the person, or they're going?
No, it's their employee. She or he will be their employee, but they'll be housed here. So I'll be basically supervising them, which is kind of odd.
Okay.
So they'll do all the enrollment for the MyLeap grant, as well as basic marketing and outreach for the rest of our student body to tap into their services. But so yeah, it's gonna be interesting. So
yeah, I would love to talk with you, and I'm sure Sandra probably too. She probably has some experience because she's been working with those grants over a long period. So
okay,
definitely.
Good.
Let's connect offline.
All right, thanks.
Yes.
Hey,
so
Dawn.
We got a MyLeap grant too, and I know
too.
You got one too. All over the place.
We have a coordinator on site already. Yeah.
Nice.
So, how's that going?
It's a little bit like what Dawn said. It's it's interesting because they technically work for Networks Northwest. They hired them. We were part of the process, but it's actually so far it's been pretty good. She's done a lot to help a couple of students. She's known, so we know her. So it wasn't like a person that was kind of cold, but in general, it's been pretty helpful. And she's reached out about finding credentialing opportunities on the basically non-academic side of things. And so far, I think it's been a real plus. So, but I think it's really totally dependent on the person.
Usually is.
But if you have questions, reach out to me. I'd be glad to help either of you out as you go through that process.
Thanks. I appreciate that. It looks like we're probably going to have somebody coming in totally blind, totally new to both systems, both Michigan Works and the college system. So, I don't know if that's a bad thing, because I feel like maybe I'll have an opportunity to raise them right.
Yeah, not jaded at all, or we did it this way. This is how we should do it.
Yeah.
The only thing that can be important is because the MyLeap dollars are last dollars in. It's understanding financial aid. It's the FAFSA requirements, all of that. So if you can steer somebody who has some understanding of the academic financial aid component, will help you.
Okay. Where do you house them, Ed? Did you put the navigator someplace near you, or near financial aid, or near student success?
Right near us, because we want to keep our eyes on them. Because, I don't know how to be careful with this, but sometimes we struggle with networks, our Michigan Works, Networks Northwest component, because they drive things in a certain direction, and we really want to drive them towards some of our programming. So we put them in our technical areas so they have a better understanding of some of these technical programs, because that's, like many of you are seeing, that's really where the big demand is, and industry demand is. And so we're trying to strengthen that connection through them. And so it worked out really well from that perspective. we're also fortunate is that the office manager in our area came from financial aid, so she understands that helps.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Again, reach out if you have questions. I can tell you my experiences. So.
I will, thanks.
That is a great segue topic into evaluation and data collection and short-term training, because my LEAP has a little data collection and evaluation, right? Like a tiny little bit, maybe. Yeah. And do I understand correctly? And I am not the lead on my LEAP. That's Kate Miller. That they're still like building the plane as they fly kind of thing on that. Shocking.
Well, I mean, I should be careful. I mean, that's my understanding, and that's how they operate, is that they're trying to making it up as they go. I had a conversation with my lead coordinator yesterday, and she was telling me about the volume of paperwork she has to fill out, which is just kind of overwhelming. And so, I didn't have the bandwidth to sort of go into that with her yesterday, but I think you're right, Amy, is that there's a lot of stuff being made up as they go.
And is it, I know when we say paperwork, it could actually be like paper, hard copy paper. Is that what we're talking about? Are we moving to digital?
Don't know. She talked about paperwork, so yeah.
Okay. All right. So I know that is, and I know there are some colleges that do better with digital, and maybe some that actually with the forced digital that we've had lately with, that thing that's been going on, have to turn a lot of other systems into digital. I got to say, Kalamazoo Valley seems to really, really like their paper and their processes, and they are so wanting to get back to the way it was done before. Even though we've shown we can do it this way, they kind of want to go back in some areas. And data collection and evaluation is one of those things. So previously, that's all been kind of done on paper. And I know, right? Patrick's shaking his head. I'm as flabbergasted as you are, friend. And so we kind of took advantage of the forced nature of being online for so many things, and are trying to implement some online data collection and some online evaluation. And we're kind of having some mixed success. One of the things with evaluations, when we're doing, so one of our classes that we transitioned online was one of our leadership classes, and it transitioned pretty well. We're pretty happy with how it did. And we run that often enough that we were able to try different ways of trying to collect evaluation data on that. And for this, I'm talking about not assessment. I'm actually talking about evaluation. So evaluation of their experience and things like that. And so what we're finding is that we almost have to put the evaluation link in a chat at the beginning, encourage them to have it at least open on their computer. And then, before the class ends, because once it ends, they're like, poof, gone. And so we're trying that, and we're still not getting the response rate that we would like, because, paper, it's right there in front of them and they got it. But I really don't want to go back to paper. And I really want that evaluation data. Is anybody having some luck with evaluation or data collection digitally that seems to be working really well, that you're getting, close to maybe a 90 or 100% response rate?
Yeah. So I don't know if many of you use the MTI system or are co-hosts for MTI.
Mm-hmm.
They have it figured out. So they switched to fully virtual for all the MIOSHA MTI trainings. And apparently there were a number of their co-sponsors who weren't willing to transition to a virtual platform. So we performed a lot of MTI trainings online over the last year and a half. And throughout that time period, they got much better with their evaluation piece. Of course, they have to get the certificate from MTI in order to move, on through their process of level 1 and level 2 credentials. But so that's, that motivates them to complete all the paperwork is my point. But they use Microsoft Forms, and they have had almost zero problem with their students being able to access it or complete it. So they have 100% success rate on the evaluations, but they do that. They put it in the chat box, and they don't let them log out until they've received. Obviously, they could sneak by, but they ask them to not log out of the meeting until they've completed their assessment and their evaluation, and they get 100% success rate.
You hold them hostage. I never really
pretty much.
considered that before. It's a mental hostage, but interesting.
Yeah. And Microsoft Forms is nice because it just dumps it into a spreadsheet, and they've got all the data that they need right there. So we have not implemented that for some of our things, but I was just feeling bad because we haven't implemented that for the rest of our stuff because it would be so easy to create and and launch, but it works for them.
And we also we just started a relationship with MTI and have only run a couple of classes with them, and so I knew about their requirement for having to have that turned in, and we're having our first person that has not turned in an evaluation and is ghosting us and not going to get his certificate. And so we haven't played that kind of hardball with our other classes. Interesting. Yeah. What's everybody else doing is everybody still doing paper for evaluation and data collection? Lori, what are you doing at Macomb?
Well, again, with lumens, Patrick took the lead on this as well with evaluations, and we're just now implementing the Microsoft Forms. And so he saw that through, and we have the forms, and now we're going to put it to use. With lumens, they had the opportunity for us to use evaluations, to enter a link to send those to the students. The challenge with that for us is the day that they get sent. The day that they get sent is when the class is over, and you just said, poof, they're gone, and we've got nothing because they get that eval late. So we are going to be sending them out to classes via the class roster through Lumens, but sending them the Microsoft Forms. So we're excited about doing that and implementing it and to see what kind of data we get back. So,
is that for all classes, in person and virtual?
Yes.
So, Lori, are you Microsoft Teams based then? And Outlook based and Microsoft, and Dawn, you too? Yeah, we don't have that yet. I can't figure out the correct bribe for my IT department to make them do that. I have tried citrus fruit. I have tried chocolate. They won't let me bring beer on campus. Like I'm gonna have to up my game to get that because we do not have that yet, and I feel like it's hobbling. But it's like a lot of you were talking about the expense of a new non-credit system. They don't want to go through the expense of. I know, shaking your head again, Patrick. It's just right of that. Hey, by the way, for those of you that are have joining us and just watching, Shanta, I'd love for you to join us, camera and video, to hear what's going on at Lansing. All you got to do is share your camera and video, friends. Nathan, you too. You guys have great perspectives. Would really love to hear what you have to say. So be brave. It's okay. You can join. We're all really nice. I think you know that.
Is that Microsoft Forms pretty easy? I've never actually worked in it, so it's pretty simple. Okay.
It's probably kind of like Google Forms, right?
Yeah. That's what I'm wondering. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like it for sure.
Okay.
But
I might
Google
try
is-
this for my cohort that's ending this week just to see what we get.
Yeah, if you can use Google Forms, but the problem is that if you have a Google, like for me, I have a Microsoft account and then I have a Google account that's a personal account.
Yeah.
So if I get a Google form, it automatically opens in my personal account and then I don't have permissions. It's really irritating. So
I have the same issue.
yeah. So Microsoft is much more seamless.
Hey, Lori and Patrick, we just switched to Lumens as well, and I have not turned on the evaluation just because the system went live for my programs about 3 weeks ago, but I'm moving in that direction, and just so I may reach out to you guys about best practices and how you make this work from the evaluation, because I think it is important, and I don't know how to, like Amy said, how do you get people to get the data back? Do you hold back their certificates? What do you do? So be curious to see how you guys handle that as well.
Yeah, Ed, you're welcome to reach out. Any one of us would be happy to help. And anybody else on the call, you're welcome to reach out. We've, like Lori said, we're going to send it out as class roster just because of the due date. And then for those courses that utilize our LMS Canvas, we'll embed those we'll embed a course survey as well into the shell itself. So, but you're more than welcome to reach out.
Yeah, I might do that just because I'm trying to figure out how to do is like Amy said, how do you get them to comply without forcing them, because you don't want to be irritating, but so
Sometimes I do, Ed. Sometimes I want to be
I know.
irritating. Depends on the day and depends on the person. Sometimes I like to go there.
I know, but that becomes so burdensome when you have a
Yeah.
lot of people going through your system, because you spend your whole time just chasing down evaluations.
Agreed. Yeah. Thanks, Nathan. Thanks, Shanta. Nathan, what are you doing with evals?
Hold on.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. This is my first time using this software. It varies depending on, we've done similar to what other people have used, really anything and everything, nothing through a formalized platform. Usually it's usually free open resources like Google and things like that. I missed part of the conversation, so if I'm completely off base, please let me know. We had a student issue happening. So typically what we're using is Microsoft Forms more often than not, at least at the areas in which I am at. What we are trying to do, if you're talking about more formalized, going through our Moodle platform, going through that is typically the way we go. But if I'm off base, if I miss something, I apologize. But that's typically what we're using is just Microsoft Forms. It usually ends up being quicker, easy, and it also helps with Teams. I don't know if you guys have found that. I heard at the beginning of the conversation, that's the part I didn't miss, just with technological advances and not wanting to go backwards and trying to hold on to those past practices. I think what we've learned in the last 2 months is it's springboarded us forward about 10 years. It's just making sure we maintain that momentum. And I've seen that here. I've only been at Kellogg now for 4 months, but I was at Jackson for 7 years prior. But it's easy to hold on to what's comfortable to you. And I understand that wholeheartedly. And even at times it's hard for me to move forward. But we got to, I think, continue to force ourselves to do this, because now we do have these things available to us and to teach ourselves and to find new things. So that's what I'm hopeful to do. And again, only been here 4 months, so I don't have a ton of context. So, but as we move forward, hope I can share more as I participate in these moving forward.
Now you're on point, friend. You, for missing part of it, you picked it right up and carried the ball. Thank you. Hey, Shanta, what are you doing at Lansing for evals?
So actually, I was just joining to hear what everybody else was doing, trying to get familiar, and this is why I joined the roundtable today. I'm actually in a newer role, my own self. I'm now the Associate Dean for our Technical Career Division. And so I did come from the non-credit side of the house, where we did a lot of short-term training and data collection. And it was a hassle to chase individuals down to get them to do those evals. So I totally understand where you guys are coming from. And I just wanted to see what you guys, suggestions that I can even pass on to them or even to my team as well when we are doing evals.
Anybody using any systems to follow up? And a lot of our short-term training programs, part of that is reporting to Michigan Works or the funder on employment, and we have to check in and continuously, you know, it's really hard to get people to respond to us. A lot of times it's multiple emails, and you know, our programs are evaluated on employment data and wages and such. Is anybody using any ways to track those areas? Nope.
Apparently none of it. This is a great idea, though.
Basically, Kristen is doing what you're doing. You just have to track them down and try to get them to respond. And it's just hard. Again, it's just, I don't know how you systematize something like that, because they move on, they have changed jobs. And so it's really hard to be, get any kind of good, consistent data. Sometimes I think the data we collect is not really that great. And so it actually hurts us more than it helps us.
So, Kristen, I also worked on the Michigan Works side of the house, so I used to do WIOA as well.
Yes.
And so, yes, tracking down is the number one hassle, and they have to have it for their outcomes. But I usually always got the opportunity to know who I was providing the funding for, and got a relationship either with the faculty or somebody that kept in touch with the individual. And then also the employer. I also made sure I had a good relationship with the employer where they went to the first time, and maybe, hey, I can follow with them. And sometimes, it's kind of a confidential thing, but if they heard, I would ask them. And then sometimes when I'm sitting down with the individual, I would say, hey, you got this opportunity to receive funding from Michigan Works. It'll be great if funding can continue, if you can provide that data. This is one of the reasons why we have funding. If you are a success, you give us that information. And most of the time I didn't struggle with that, because more people wanted to see other people come through the same process of what they did as well. So I thought that was very important.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of related to that, the longer term data collection that you were just talking about, the MI Talent website, and right, the where you can put the programs up there and qualify for the funding, but they have really beefed up the data that they want, and the long-term data, and the what is it? It's good 2 or 3 years out. You're supposed to be tracking these people. And we kind of let some of our stuff fall off just because we don't have somebody that we can allocate to tracking these people down. And I don't know that automating that will get us what we need to stay compliant. Is anybody doing that?
I'm running into big issues with that. Like one of my programs was inactive, tried to update it yesterday, but the program hadn't been in existence for that long, when it was asking the data and I was getting errors. And it's almost like you're trying to go around the system and almost cheat it, which I don't want to do because we want to be compliant, but it's been very frustrating, at least for me, in updating programs and adding that information.
It's almost like you need a person really devoted to calling and tracking these people down. And I think we just kind of made a return on investment decision, which was hard because you want to provide opportunities and funding to people. But if it ends up costing us so much in resources to be able to qualify for the funding, like you just, from a business perspective, you really shouldn't be doing it. From a social perspective, it's all there. But if you are digging yourself into the hole to provide it, that's just not sustainable. And I don't know, we even talked to we do have, for the credit area, we have a data team. Again, the whole separate but equal thing. Like, they don't want to get into our stuff. It's messier. And so he didn't want to touch our stuff either. He was like, nope, I don't want to do that.
So Amy, that's so funny you say that, because we actually had when I was on the short-term training side of the house, we actually had a person who did all the follow-up. And what I made sure is that they connected with the case managers too, for those that did receive training, to gather some of that information along with our side of the house on the education side, because there's a lot of information now that the MI talent is requesting now, and it is ridiculous.
Mhm.
It's a lot, and I understand, but just put our programs up there. I still get requests from students to say, hey, I want to get funded by Michigan Works. Can you add this program? And those are things we have to consider now, what you just mentioned.
Mhm. Yeah. I don't
agree.
know that I have a good solution. Lori, what do you got?
Renee was going to say something.
Oh, thanks, Lori. I was gonna say, we agree. We had to make a decision on the return on investment. It was just way too much. And now I strictly put a program up when I have a request for it. And there's nothing we can do. And I know our local Michigan Works office is not happy about that, but I'm a one-person office, so I do everything. And I can't. I was spending hours and hours and hours just trying to even figure out the program every year, right? Because, okay, I only do my data entry once a year and my follow-up, and it would take you a full day just to remember and then to go through the changes. So definitely I agree. And the return on investment, you have to make a choice, and that it just wasn't, it's not there for us.
Bummer. Sometimes that's part of these conversations too, is finding out that, yeah, everybody's a little bit in the same boat, and it unfortunately doesn't really work really well. And, I'm not sure how to get that communicated at the state level. And I don't know if that's indicative of the way a lot of things are going with marketing and advertising. Maybe that's what, we're shooting ourselves in the foot in our education for marketing and advertising, where they're like, mine data, get all the data. You need to be data informed, and this is how you do it. And then they're putting that in place, and we're like, it's really hard to get the data that you want. You need to come up with solutions before you tell us what it is that you want, maybe. So yeah, I'm finding that really challenging. And I think it's either Ed or Nathan, maybe you were saying that even when we're collecting data in some other areas, we're not really using it. And I think it was you're not using it very well, or it's not great data. So I'm also curious if, so with evaluations, or even with data, like which classes are, and I think that was something with Lumens, is they had a dashboard that would tell you which classes are successful and which aren't. And Tina, I'm wondering if you do this in lifelong learning to find out if it's more than anecdotal, right? Is it just we're making the observations by what we're observing and going from that? Are you actually using data where you're going back and you're saying, you know what? We offered this class in the spring and in the summer, and in the spring it kicked tiny and we got tons of people. We're going to offer it again in the spring and not in the summer, kind of thing. Are you tracking anything like that, Tina?
That's where, really and truly, that's where the true data is looking at the trends and watching the enrollment, because that piece of paper, because sad to say, we're still pencil paper evaluations too. It comes to me, I look at it, and then it just kind of sits like no one else wants it. It's just for me. So it's a lot of work to do it, to collect it. So really watching the enrollment trends is really the biggest guide for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've done a lot of work over the years. I've been here a long time, a lot of work getting all that data back, working really hard to get those evaluations back. And then it just kind of just falls in a book and a shelf, and no one really needs to see it, I guess, except for the Michigan Works and those types of programs. I'm working now with our IR person, a institutional research. She's starting to step in and take over some of these things. So I'm really curious to see how that goes, if she's going to be able to manage it a whole lot more, because I'm a one-person operation right now too. It's impossible to keep all these balls in the air. It's just too hard. So, but I was curious, outside of the Michigan Works requirements or the state requirements, what else do you use your evaluation information for? Is it just for yourself? Or do you look at different things to decide how to move forward? I'm curious.
Tina, I'm in the same boat. It just would sit there, right? You just,
Yeah.
and then eventually it would just go.
I mean, I look at them all, so
You're right,
I
you look
see
at it,
things.
what do you
Yeah.
do with it? So I mainly use all my evals for evaluating my instructors.
Yeah.
I have all of that information. I save all the little good comments.
Yeah.
So that when I have to do a report or something, I have all of my little, testimonials and such.
Mhm.
And then ours are usually on, we hated the lunch that you served. The room was too cool.
Not
Yeah.
enough bacon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So by the time I discount all of that stuff, and then I'm like, why am I even asking that? It's not like a week later I can do anything about the temperature in the room.
Right.
So I streamline mine now. We do pencil and paper as well, except for the MTI and my online courses that are, like Ed to Go type. But yeah, I just mainly evaluate my instructors on it.
Yeah.
So
We use ours for, and I really want to dig into this, and I would love to see something different. But there is one question that we use to inform a metric, a performance metric for our department. It is basically, it's a satisfaction. And so long as our satisfaction percentage is over a certain amount, we call ourselves successful. And I'm like, seriously, that is the only thing that you are using to determine whether or not we are doing amazing things. And I don't know if anybody else for their workforce areas or their lifelong learning or any of these, like, what are the metrics that you're being held to, performance metrics by your college? And then how are you proving that with data? Or are you not? Are they just like, you're cool, nobody has come to us on fire, nobody has sued us, so you're doing a good thing, Tina, keep it going?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, our evaluation tool is okay. It gives me some information feedback that I can use, but it's just for me. It's not like they're coming in and wanting all of this documentation and reports. I mean, I have it if they ever do, but really and truly, yeah, if nothing's on fire, you're cool. Truly.
Same here at OCC. I mean, we use it for our benefit to make sure the instructors are hitting the mark, clients are happy and such. And usually, sometimes I'll, if it's contract training or client services, then I will send them kind of a summary just so that they can see that we're doing a good job and hopefully get more training. But nobody's ever requested it from our end. And usually if there's a problem, somebody, there's an issue with one student or somebody saying you're not doing it and it's just a one-off and we have these other evaluations, which are good. It's a way to kind of defend ourselves as well.
And you're going to hear that long before the evaluation is filled out.
Exactly.
Yeah, long before. Yeah.
Yes. Well, a lot of our programs will evaluate at the end of the week. We have different modules. So we try to keep in touch to try to get those issues if there is, instead of waiting until week 14 when they say, oh, I had an issue a couple of weeks ago. Why didn't you fix it? Kind of thing.
Yeah, and we're using the data not for performance of the unit, but just purely reporting. Our biggest metric for performance is financial. As long as they're making
it's
money.
Financial until we want something, and then all of a sudden we can't afford it. And I'm very perplexed by that because I see the numbers.
Well, then there's that.
Yeah.
That's probably a separate roundtable.
Probably. But do you think it is, I feel like community colleges as a whole, and I've really only been in higher education for a couple of years now, performance metrics kind of aren't a thing. Am I like off the base? Like, I think even for the colleges, I think graduation rates are there, but I don't know. Go ahead, Ethan.
No, so I'll try to start big and then go small if I can. And then I think higher education in general, at least in this state, from some of the work I've done with guided pathways and things like that, Universally, I think institutions are pretty bad at collecting data. I think they're good at promoting that they take the base level data they need for accreditation, but that to me is the bare bones of what we should be doing. So, and we like to grandstand that we're collecting all this data, but then we don't really collect what's important to us, right? So what I've seen during my time, like going to different institutions and doing this work, has been that what we do is we make what we collect important to us instead of what's important to us measurable. So we got to kind of flip our switch, right? So getting more specific to what we're doing is we need to make what's important to us and find a way to measure that, as opposed to making what's measurable important to us. And I think that's the trend that I've seen in higher education over the past 12 years has been that we have this base level data and we just assume that that's enough, because you can see trends, like very basic level trends. But to order to get to that next level that you need to do, you need to drill down deeper and then do it again and again. And a lot of times it does come down to, and I hate this as an excuse, and I hate using it when I have to, like when it's appropriate, is that there's just not enough time oftentimes, especially in the community college world. If you go to the four-year institutions where they have what I call micro specializations, where they can drill down and have positions where that's their sole function, it makes it easier. But I think Renee brought up, hey, she does everything herself. For me to sit here and say, hey, why don't you make what's important to you measurable? Well, when the hell do I have time to do that? And then redo the whole system to make it happen. So I think we do a decent job of doing the bare minimum to give to the VFA and IPEDS and the HLC. And then we try to take that data and make it useful. But the issue is the questions that we need to answer are probably 3 or 4 levels below that. And then it's just having the ability to go into that system and do that. And the way we could do that is by making tools, again, what's important to us measurable, getting tools that we can use to then move forward in that vein. But so I know it's very vague, but just with my experiences, that's what I have seen. And then contextualized to this work, I think it would just take, in my judgment, it takes years to do this work. Like if you were to revitalize this, I know people love quick turnaround times in higher education, but if you're going to set a strong foundation in doing this, I think let's try not to just put it up on stilts to say we do it, but actually like let's take the semesters and time we need to build the baseline and then to actually report out meaningful data.
I love everything that you said, except I have to disagree that people expect quick turnarounds in higher education.
Okay,
We
fair
do
enough.
in some areas, and it's usually the areas that most of us are involved with. But what I have found in dealing with a lot of different players in the higher education thing, no, we need to meeting that stuff. Let's have a dozen meetings and let's talk about that, and then maybe we'll decide what we're thinking about doing. And in the meantime, we have a client that called us last week and wants us to execute something this week. Yeah. There are parts of higher education that can absolutely 100% do that, but there are a lot of parts that do not. So I would balance that slightly, but I completely agree with what you said as far as the need to measure and make it purposeful. And that all sounds great, but how do we do that? What do we do? And then what do we use
here?
Right. Also, because, like Tina and Renee saying, Kristen, it's for our internal stuff. And, the internal part is great, but when it comes down to it, if your employer and your supervisor and the people you're reporting to could give a hoot about it, again, that return on investment. And so there's, to me, it's a big dissonance, because I think a lot of people that are in lifelong learning and workforce development, things like that, we want to do good in the world. We want to help people. Like that's kind of bottom line what it is. We want to do that. And we'd love to be as successful as possible. And so a lot of us know that data could help us do that. And obviously so could resources. But what is an option for us? And so I think some of these digitized data collection tools is definitely part of it. It sounds like some of our non-credit registration systems are getting a little better with reporting and being able to harvest that. But to your point, Nathan, what are we doing with the information, and is the information actually as valuable as we make it out to be? David, do you have something to add, sir?
Well, I tend to agree with Ed that we do a lot of the RERs, the fancy thing that we do a lot of evaluation as far as credit courses go, and it's usually based, and we also have a pretty stringent section count. We make sure that we have the enrollment for the sections to support, obviously to support the cost of running those sections, which really plays havoc in keeping students on track, because if we don't have enough students to run a course, we've advertised in our pathway that it's going to run at this point in the pathway. We don't have enough students to run, and then we have to create them into independent studies. So, but the RER is kind of the big one that I don't want to say use as the metric, whether we should, what are those evaluation tools about how the program's doing, whether we should run it. And we've also been working with program health, kind of using a few different metrics other than RER to say whether the program's in good standing and students
What the heck's RER? I don't know what that
return
is.
on educational resource. Basically, are you making money? Are you breaking even in running these courses? So it's an evaluation. That's usually, I don't want to say something that always is an annual plug-in for the evaluation. We've also recently acquired a career and technical education specialist. It's through a Perkins funded position, and she's trying to track down our students for example, we have a hard time. We have a lot of students that have come here for one semester of welding. They'll go from $8 an hour to $15, $18 an hour from one semester welding. And for persistence, retention, graduation, it looks terrible. But this student just went from not being able to feed their family to being able to have a career, a job, a life in one semester. But on all educational assessments, that's terrible. The HLC thinks that's terrible. But we know that student we've really improved the quality of their life, even though it was just that one semester. So this person has been trying to track those students when they don't, when they aren't retained or they aren't being persisting. What's happening? And what we found a lot is because they've got a good job. They went from the $8 an hour to $20 an hour, and they're sitting pretty, but it doesn't work with any of the metrics that we have as far as in HLC, any of those educational metrics. So we've had this person that's trying to say, hey, well, they took one semester, did really well, and now they have a better life, a better job. They can take vacations, they can afford to feed their family, that kind of thing. So we have a person, it's been about, and I was during the pandemic, so it's been a little tough, but going to get it started. But we contact students that haven't, for example, went in fall and didn't come in spring and try to find out why. And one of the reasons we find out is, hey, they got a better job, which doesn't look good on any of our educational metrics, but looks really good for our students, and we consider that a success. Hey, we trained you to have a much better life and a better career. So hopefully, as time goes on, we'll have some better metrics about how we're doing, not relative to just the standards that we have to report for pro and program health and all of those things, but really, are we making a difference in the training and the process and making lives better?
Hey, David, what college are you with?
Lansing Community College.
Oh, cool. It's not underneath your name, so I didn't have the data. I appreciate you sharing. Thank you. All right, friends, we are wrapping this one up. To me, it sounds like Dawn gave a great idea about, it sounded a little bit like behavioral. So you don't let them leave, or actually you tell them they can leave if they want, but you basically kind of say, you can't leave the session until you fill out the evaluation. So she kind of anchors it there, which that's pretty brilliant. That might actually work. Other than that, I think we heard that we need like another person. We need another resource that can concentrate on data for us and make this all happen. But the challenge is having the information being recognized as valuable by the college itself to be able to invest those resources. And so how would you, prove the return on investment for another person? Because even though we're making money, Ed, they're not necessarily putting that back into our programs. That's supporting something else usually. The revenue generation, what I have found does not mean that we get to add more people. So thank you all. I really appreciate the conversation on this. I always love hearing everybody's viewpoints. We are up to time again. And then I think we've got another 15-minute break, and we have one more regular session of the day. And then Ken is going to do a little bit of a recap. And then there are some other kind of department type roundtables after that. So, all right, I'm going to let you all go. Have a good one. I'll see you soon. Thank you.